And welcome. This is News of Interest with John Ubel. I'm going to be changing the format of the show, beginning with this one, where I'm going to be doing some news items in the beginning, and if I have any guests or callers, I'll be taking that at the end. So let's get started here. In international news today, there was a story which made quite a few headlines, but wasn't really reported correctly. There was a large bomb which exploded in front of a Greek courthouse. It actually happened, I believe, somewhere in downtown Athens. Now, this bomb was so powerful that it totally torched about a dozen cars. I mean, it literally looks like these cars were put under a gigantic blowtorch. They were all melted and mangled and everything else. And it blew the facade off of one of the courthouse buildings to the extent where all the windows were shattered. It didn't technically get totally blown off, but it shattered all the windows. And the building had to be 5 or 6 stories, but all the windows all the way up were just shattered. I mean, dozens, perhaps even 200-300 windows were just broken. So you're talking about a big bill to replace quite a bit of glass. But the thing that the story doesn't say, this one that I'm talking about is actually an article from the UPI, but the stories, what they're not talking about is that this is political violence. And political violence is something that the media or that the government doesn't really ever want to classify, because they're afraid that if they do, that it could actually create more, because so many people are angry at the system. So, but it's likely that in Greece and even in other countries we're going to see more political violence, because there are just so many people that are fed up and disenfranchised with the system, and they feel cheated or whatever else, and they want to do something to get back at it, and that's just what they do. This is something which has happened many times over history, and it's likely we're going to see much more of it in the near future, considering the way that things are going. It's very unfortunate, but not much we can do about it. We just have to try to survive it, I guess. And the next story, there was an article about how Britain, or the British government, is drafting plans to evacuate British residents from the Gulf region in the event that there's a war with Iran. Now, the thing is about this story is that if there's a war with Iran, it's going to be very fast. I mean, there's going to be missiles flying everywhere. So the chance of them being able to evacuate tens or hundreds of thousands of British residents or British citizens from the region before this breaks out is going to be very unlikely, because most likely what will happen is Israel will go in and strike some of their nuclear facilities or something in Iran, and then the Iranians will launch a massive retaliatory strike with cruise missiles and surface-to-surface missiles and everything else, and even anti-ship missiles, and it could happen within a matter of maybe an hour, perhaps even within a matter of 20, 30 minutes, because that's how much everybody over there is like on a hair trigger. So hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully we won't have a conflict, but if we do, it's definitely going to reshape the global economy in ways that people just can't begin to imagine, something that none of us should look forward to. And hopefully Israel will behave herself for once and just stand down and just try to be civilized and get along with their neighbors in the region, but I'm a little doubtful of that. Now, in the last show that I did, I talked about the importance of survival training, and I spoke about the increasing crime that we're seeing in the United States, and how in Brazil violent crime is just an ordinary thing down there. And this one story that I'm going to talk about in just a second, it builds on what I've been saying about the crime. But one of the things I do want to mention before I forget is that I remember it was a few months back where the International Olympic Committee had chosen Rio de Janeiro as the next host city or the host city for one of the Olympic Games. I don't know if it was 2014 or 2016 or 2018. I can't remember. But what happened was after that announcement came out, within 2 or 3 days, it might have even been the next day after the announcement came out that they were chosen to be that host city, the gangs down there had gotten in a gun battle with the police, and they shot down a police helicopter. And the police helicopter crashed, and I believe the policemen on board were killed, and some residents on the ground were injured and or killed. And that just goes to show you, that just illustrates how bad the crime is down there, that they're losing police helicopters. I mean, I don't think that we've had any law enforcement helicopters shot down in the United States, not that I know of, and I read the news a lot, but I mean, that's something that's really major, and I imagine at some point we may see something like that here. So, but the article itself, the title is Welcome to Brazil, a Paradise of Impunity for All Kinds of Criminals. This article was originally published online in February 2008. It's about 3 years old, but it's worth a read. I'm going to provide links for all these articles in the info box for the archived version of this broadcast on YouTube, and it'll also be on my Blog Talk Radio page. But it's really worth reading because it tells you how rampant the violence is down there and the government corruption. And not just the government corruption with the government itself, but also with the police forces, the payoffs and the bribes and everything that goes along with it. So definitely worth checking out. Now, the next thing I want to mention is something which is a little more positive, and I want to talk a little bit about community currencies because we're starting to see more of that, and it's likely that we're going to see much more of it in the future because at the rate that our currency is inflating or deteriorating, we just don't know to what extent that's going to continue or at what rate. I mean, we could actually see a dollar collapse any day. There's been people that have said that. One prominent investor, Rob Kiyosaki, had said that in his book, and he has said that in interviews. We could wake up any morning and find out that the dollar has collapsed or failed, and that's definitely not a good prospect. But one of the ways that local communities or even groups of people can insulate themselves from that type of collapse is by using or creating alternative currencies. Because by doing that, what you do is you have a means of exchange, a way to purchase services and or goods from your neighbor, your friends, or local businesses or whatever. And there's been several really good examples of successful community currencies over the last 10, 15 years. Two of them which really stick out are the Ithaca Hours and the Berkshires. And that's something that people should definitely check out. But the name of the magazine, again, it's called Community Currency Magazine. You can check that out at ccmag.net. And the last two stories I want to touch on before we go to break is, well, they're local stories, local to the Tampa Bay area. And one of the things that seems to be happening more and more are people dying at, as the media calls them, disturbances at either their strip clubs or their clubs or something along those lines. But there was another man who was shot to death down in Clearwater, some type of disturbance, as the media called it, last night. And, you know, for those people that go to strip clubs, you're just asking for trouble. I mean, they're literally like hotbeds of criminal activity. The best thing to do is stay away from them. I mean, there's just no good that can come from those places. So that's my advice to people, and hopefully everyone will heed it. The last story I want to talk about, and this is a story which happened kind of locally. It actually happened down in Sarasota, which really isn't part of the Tampa Bay area. But the thing is that there was a Marine and his wife. He was home from Iraq, and him and his wife, they went on a date at a local movie theater. They caught some evening show or something, and they got in basically in a fight or a melee with a gang of black teens. Now, the couple were white, and the teens, as I said, were black, and what happened was the teens began assaulting the couple and literally just began, beating them, and they ended up knocking the woman to the ground, and she ended up, I believe she was knocked out, according to the news story. And then there was a Good Samaritan who saw what was going on, and he grabbed his gun and he showed it, flashed it to the teens, and then they ran away. Now, had that Good Samaritan not done that, it's very likely that couple would have been beaten to death. I mean, but there's people out there that will still do the right thing and make sure that other people are somewhat safe or secure. But the point that I want to say about this is that be careful where you go and at what time you go. I mean, and it doesn't. I'm not strictly talking about movie theaters, whether you go to concerts or shows or any type of clubs, anything like that. People have to really keep it in their minds. They have to be cognizant of where they are because the world, well, let me just say this, the United States is becoming a much more dangerous place. And I'm not saying that you have to live in your house like a little hermit or something and never go out or socialize, but just be careful, be cognizant of where you are. And if you can, get yourself a concealed weapons permit and get a gun, learn how to shoot, and because it's better to have a firearm and not need it than need a firearm and not have it. So those are really words to live by. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take a break, and then I'll be back here in just a few minutes. And I'm back. What I'm going to do is one of my good friends has called into the show, so I'm going to try to take his call. It's the first time that I'm doing this, so hopefully this will go through correctly. So, Bobby, are you there?
I'm here, man. How you doing?
Good. I want to thank you for joining us this evening.
Oh, man, yeah, that music was brutal, though, man, I got to say.
Well, it's an old tune, but I've actually had a lot of requests for it, so I thought I would play it for the second show.
There's a lot of, middle-aged women right now requesting it.
Yeah, well, I think...
Anyway, how are you doing, man? Hey, enough about the music. How are you doing?
I've been good. Good. Just trying to put some shows together and hopefully wake some people up. That's the goal. Give them some news that they wouldn't find from another source. So
yeah.
Now we hang out from time to time. Tell me a little bit about the economic situation down there in southern Pinellas County. I mean, what's it like? What types of things have you been seeing?
Well, it's amazing you ask, actually, because, I mean, in a way, there's a lot of good stuff, a lot of positive stuff going on right now, because all these crappy businesses are closing. And, I mean, I tell you, it's just, like, a Red Lobster closed, and that is the worst, chain restaurant in the world. I mean, they probably get all the lobster and, fish from China, and, oh, man, I tell you. But, yeah, a lot of places that are going out of business kind of, in my opinion, deserve to. But let me make no mistake. There are a lot of good people out of business right now, and that's not good. But when I see someone like Red Lobster go under, I'm kind of happy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Red Lobster doesn't have the level of quality that they used to. I used to be quite a proponent of that restaurant, quite the patron, and over the last, I would say, 5 to 6 years, the quality's gone down considerably. It's unfortunate. But I think I know the one.
Health inspectors.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of restaurants that are probably, would fall into that category, unfortunately. But yeah, it's, one of the things about Florida, people don't realize it, is that it's very humid during the summers. Well, those people that have never been here before, it's very humid during the summers. So it's very hard to control mold. And a lot of restaurants, they get mold, and there's really very little that they can do about it. I mean, they could actually try to create a more sterile environment, but I've actually been in some chain restaurants before. I'm not really going to say the names because I just don't want to put that out there, but there's some bigger ones that have hundreds of locations across the country. A few of them actually have over 1,000. But I mean, I've been back in the kitchens and stuff, and it's a problem, and they really don't make much of an effort to try to combat it. So.
Well, it's like really bad now because of the economy. The economy is like making people just like shrug off the mold, say, "Oh, it's just mold." I'm not gonna repair that. Look, it's pretty. It looks like broccoli. Well, let's scrape some of it off and put it on a salad bar. They have this ho hum attitude about it, and that's something that shouldn't be ignored because as soon as people like start getting sick from eating wherever the hell it is, they're not going to be coming back to that place and whatever business goes under because of their mold issues. It's pretty much the same kind of scenario as getting hit with a meteor. I mean, they're gone. A lot of people are out of work. It's not a positive. It's not a positive situation for a lot of folks.
Yeah, I don't know about how many restaurants or of any restaurants that have been adding the mold to their salad bar. That's pretty disturbing. I mean, if you find out about it,
I mean, you got a lot of these new age people. They take those algae capsules. It's like this green dust crap, and they swear by it. Like, oh, it makes me feel so powerful after they do their yoga lesson. So yeah, I mean, have at it. Take all the mold you can get. I mean, that's what they should do. They should like send some of this mold to like Africa and feed some of these starving children.
I suppose that's an option. I don't know. I just didn't think of that. Well, I hope things improve down there. I really do. It's been pretty much
the worst is the violence. I mean, just free. I mean, I'm just waiting around to see cannibalism, but we haven't got there yet. People are still getting enough money to buy their ramen noodles and their potted meat, so that they're happy for now. But hopefully it doesn't get too bad. I mean, you just never know.
Yeah. I tell you, if the government cut off the food stamps, the Social Security, and the unemployment, I think there would be massive rioting across the country. But they keep the printing press going, and everybody's pretty much pacified at this point. So. But if that were to change,
the monopoly money fly.
Yes, absolutely. We have the Federal Reserve to thank for all that. Well, we're just about out of time, Bobby. I want to thank you for being my guest this evening and calling in.
Thanks for having me, sir.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. So with that, we're going to end the show.